Are you happy in your business? Now, I have had my share of emotional ups and downs in my 20 years of being a solo entrepreneur coach. And the patterns I've seen in myself and in my clients is that those downs are usually when I was personally feeling unfulfilled. Sometimes it was because a launch that flopped, and sometimes it was just life and had nothing to do with business. But those ups, oh boy, those are the times when I was feeling my most authentic and completely aligned to my purpose, or when I just felt like I was rocking that work-life balance. I would be thinking I could do this all day long and never feel tired. One of my loves is sharing what works for me and what has been working for my clients to achieve this very feeling, full of passion, happiness, peace, and freedom. So I decided to create a private podcast for coaches. Maybe you just want to develop better communication skills that boosts engagement, leads to better results, and makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the lives of the people you serve. Then you're invited too. We talk about this and more in the UBU private podcast for coaches. Whether you're a mentor, a parent, or run a client-focused business, coaching skills benefit everyone and anyone who wants to communicate in a way that builds relationships. Fall in love with your life and business again. Click the link in the show notes for your invitation to join us right now. Then come back and enjoy this episode.
And so I love the Enneagram because there's so many parts to it. You know, like you're talking about the triad and the healthy and the unhealthy. And, you know, and I could see some of the things in my son. He sounds like an 8, but then again, I am not an Enneagram coach, so I have no idea. Like he's such a challenger. He challenges me on every single thing. And although that's nice, and I said he's a future leader, that's what I'm telling myself when I get into these battles. But he's like an attorney on steroids, like literally. Like everything I have to write down is an agreement and a contract with this kid to sign. I mean, literally. So does that sound like an 8?
It's time to stop comparing yourself to others and plug in to what is uniquely you. Welcome to Unbox Your Personality, the podcast for coaches, parents, and mentors like you who understand that your happiness makes you more effective at what you do, bringing out the best in others. I'm Jen Higgins, personality strategist and Enneagram fluff remover. Get laser focused on who you are and who you aren't, so you're free to make the impact you were born to make. And have fun doing it. Your personality is your business. So let's get down to business. Phew, I'm warm. That was awesome. How did you feel?
I felt great. I felt, right, you know, it was good having a conversation. I mean, we could know each other, and you know, you're very personable and low key, and so this was good. This was fun. I think the Enneagram. You know, I'm getting so many Enneagram stuff, and you know, I go back and forth. I know for a fact I'm a 7. There's no way I'm not a 7.
You definitely are.
The thing with the wings, I'm still trying to figure it out. They said I'm a 5, like whatever number that is.
I'll clear that up for you now.
Okay.
Our wings are only the numbers on either side of us, so either a 6 or an 8.
Okay.
So if they're saying
maybe a 6.
5, if they're saying a 5, it's because that's where 7s go when they're confident.
Okay.
So either a 6 or an 8 is what your wing is going to be.
Okay.
But what I really loved, like I'm confident, you're a 7. I'm confident that you're a 7. But what I really love is you've snuck in some words there that sound like other numbers. And really? I want people to hear that. I want people to hear, you know, that, yes, I can look like I didn't say that. I probably should have brought it up, but you're being so vulnerable. I didn't want to bring that. I didn't want to mess with the vibe. It was so good. It was very touching. But like one of the things that I really love about your story is that you talked about being shy and introverted as a kid. And if you're okay with this, sometimes I do an after party. So if sometimes when we talk about some of this Enneagram stuff, other people want to hear it too. So,
Okay.
but what I love is that people need to hear that you, as a child, you were shy and introverted, but you were
That's
shy and
right.
introverted for 7 reasons. Because I
Mm.
was also shy and introverted,
Mm.
here's where I feel like I can relate with your story. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I My parents are immigrants,
Mm.
and I grew up in a town where we were the only Asian family in the entire town,
Wow.
and I didn't feel like I belonged. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't fun.
Right.
I felt trapped.
Mm.
I didn't feel like I could go anywhere without being literally boxed in of
Right.
you you don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
My options were limited as far as
Right.
how I could
Right.
identify myself, and I was afraid because I was small. I was at least 2 heads smaller than everybody else, and so I
Wow.
physically didn't feel safe either.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I was shy and introverted also, which
Mm.
is not usually associated with a 7.
Right. Which is what I was gonna ask you. Like, I thought that you can evolve out of your number. Like that where I was when I was younger, that was not a 7, I'm saying to myself, right? Like, how did I switch? I'm saying this is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, so when you said that, I'm curious about that.
So you didn't
Like
actually switch because our Enneagram number is based off of our motivations and not our behaviors.
mm-hmm,
So when we behave a certain way,
mm-hmm.
likely we were behaving like a 5 who is more, let me step back and observe. But the
Okay.
reason why we're doing it is not the same reason as a 5. So a 5 wants to
Okay.
step back and observe so that they can gather information so that they can feel competent. Okay.
Okay.
Now, 7s can do that, but mainly it's because I want to be free. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to feel trapped. I want to be
Okay.
content. I want satisfaction. I want to be happy.
Okay.
And we can go back into the 1 as well and start feeling self critical,
Yeah.
like I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? And so there were a lot of times I felt like I was a wallflower also because I just didn't feel like I belonged. And there was
Belong.
shame. There was shame in that.
Oh
And
yeah.
and shame isn't always associated with the blue triad where the thinkers are, but that's a great testament of why that shows that we're all angry, we're all shameful, we're all afraid. It's just
That's right.
it's just we fixate on one over the other. And that
Yeah.
trauma adds a whole new layer to our
Yes.
personality, a
That's
whole
right.
new layer to our Enneagram. So
Mm.
the Enneagram just really points to what our motivations are,
Okay.
and then how we can, it shows our patterns of how we behave in stress and how we behave when
Uh,
we're confident. And then
yes.
it points us in the direction of what are the healthy responses to my stress and what are the healthy responses to my security, because sometimes we can be overconfident, right?
That's right.
We could be overconfident, oversecure, and choose unhealthy responses in that oversecurity or overconfidence. Um,
Yeah.
or at least that's what it can look like. That's what we tell ourselves. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean by, so evolving. Yes, our personality definitely evolves, but our Enneagram type stays the same. It's the difference
Really.
between our Enneagram type and our
Mm-hmm.
character. I mean, our character
Mm.
evolves, right?
Mm.
And
Right.
so I like to describe it as a tripod. And
Mm-hmm.
the Enneagram explains that the one leg that's called motivation. So
Mm-hmm.
when our personality is made up of our core motivations, it's made up of our core values and our core strengths. And when we understand those, then we don't fall over. We feel a little bit more stable.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, that's my holistic approach in a nutshell.
Yeah. We become more who we were meant to be, really in a healthy space. And for people who are doing your work, I am sure that they're becoming their best self. Because I say it's work. Nothing just you just don't wake up one day and transform. I wish it was that way, but that's not how it works. In order to get better, you got to grow, and you got to grow by working. And I tell my clients, if you want to roll up your sleeves, then come work with me, because I don't do the heavy lifting. You do all the work. So I'm simply a guide, and
Yep.
that's what I
I
tell
just give
people.
you the
But
map.
right. And so I love the Enneagram because there's so many parts to it. Like you're talking about the triad and the healthy and the unhealthy. And,
Mhm.
and I could see some of the things in my son. He sounds like an 8, but then again, I am not an Enneagram coach, so I have no idea. But I just look, he's such a challenger. Like he's such a challenger. He challenges me on every single thing. And although that's nice, and I said he's a future leader, that's what I'm telling myself when I get into these battles. But um, he's like an attorney on steroids, like literally. Like
Mhm.
everything I have to write down is an agreement and a contract with this kid to sign. I mean, literally. So does that sound like an 8?
It could be, or a number that's attached to an 8. So,
Mm,
so there are other numbers that have those same behaviors.
really?
Hmm.
Oh my goodness.
And especially, with him being young, he's almost there. He's almost there where he'll be able to type himself.
Right.
But with him being young, they're still testing out the waters of what
Aren't they?
yeah, they are.
Your boys seem so easygoing, I should say.
Oh,
Easygoing. But then I don't live at your house, so I don't know. I don't know.
they can be when they're both in their 5, they can be pretty chill and pretty easygoing, definitely.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad.
So I have
But
a
it,
7. I have a
you
7
have
and
a
I have
7?
a 5. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, sevens sort of get along. They get along together. It's amazing how I'm much more aware. Not that I could type anybody, but I'm much more aware now of my friends and the people I connect to,
Mm-hmm.
and how we mesh or how we don't mesh. And their possible type. I don't go typing people, but just you could, I don't know, you could just tell.
Yeah, I hope
Sevens
you
are
can come to the challenge that's coming up, because one of the things is communicating with other personalities
ah
when you don't know their type, like just being able to
right.
communicate with them. And so
I,
that's
I would imagine I would imagine that the conversations with 7 looks a whole lot different than a 1 than with a 1.
sometimes. So it
Yeah.
depends on the levels of health of
Good luck.
between the two of them. So, but on average, if the 7's not thinking about their personality and the 1's not thinking about their personality, 7's typically get on 1's nerves. On average. So it just, but they won't show it. They won't say it. They're very polite. 1's are very polite.
Oh, I know. I know. That I know for the 1s, yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting.
But keep in
Interesting.
mind, that's very average behaviors when it's just default. They're not being healthy and they're not being unhealthy. They're just being themselves. And so
Okay.
7's and 1's can get along at that level, because the
Hmm.
7's are being free spirited,
Right. That's right.
and the 1's are noticing. They're noticing and keeping it to themselves. So
Oh, okay.
they
I
still notice
see.
it. They still notice it, but they show restraint. And it's a
They
kind
do.
thing. It's a kind thing that ones do when they show restraint.
Is it? Okay. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. I might take you up on that offer because I
Yeah.
I want to. I certainly interested in it as it relates to just knowing myself, my son, how to deal with how to deal with him and others.
Yeah. 5's really manage their energy. And when things are so unpredictable like that, it's really hard for her to manage her energy. And so she's
Really.
exhausted. Yeah.
So she needs a lot of self-care.
Yes, self care, but it looks more like processing time.
Mm.
So it's not like spas and
Well,
eat
mindfulness,
right
a lot of mindfulness. That's what
space. That's what she needs, is space.
space, yeah, which is self-care
Mhm.
actually. Which is self-care. And you know, it's funny, I put up something the other day with people talking about self-care, and I said breathing is self-care.
Mhm.
And you know what the good news is? You have your breath with you always. You
Right?
always have your breath. So it doesn't mean that I have to go to the gym or run 5 miles. I have my breath with me always. And so that's the beauty of taking time for yourself, right? It's the breathing. It's I can take these deep belly breaths anytime I want to because wherever I go, there's my breath,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
It's a
But that
gift
but
that
that
we've been given.
mindfulness, right? But that mindfulness is was part of the work that I had to do with this
Mhm.
coach. And it's now a practice, right? It's a practice. And so I say to people, I don't have a coaching business. I have a coaching practice.
Mhm.
Why? Because I have a coach and I have to be accountable to her. And so when I meet her and she's asking me about these different goals that we're working on, part of it is mindfulness.
Yeah,
As you know, as a seven, mindfulness is really hard to come by,
it
right? That
is.
whole idea of mindfulness.
And I'll tell you why, as explained by the Enneagram. And I call mine a practice also. I wonder if that's the seventh thing. So
Yeah, probably.
so the reds are the body types, the greens are the heart types, and the blues are the head types. And you see
Uh-huh.
where the seven has an arrow going down?
Yep.
Sevens underexpress their thinking. Like
Mm-hmm.
they fixate on their thoughts, they fixate on ideas and all that kind of stuff, but they there's a lot of suppression that
Mm-hmm.
goes on because there's so many thoughts they can't express all of them.
Right.
And so because they're trying to avoid pain, they will only express the happy ones. And
Mm-hmm.
whereas fives, they'll express them all if you can get them to
Really?
express them. If you can get to them to express them. If they trust you and they think you're interesting, you can't really get them to shut up. They'll just
Oh,
talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
it's interesting.
And then sixes are kind of out of touch with their thoughts. They have lots of thoughts, but they're more concerned about other people's thoughts, to validate their own thoughts. They don't trust their
Mm-hmm.
own thoughts. But
Mm.
something that's very interesting. So there's a lot of traits when you're talking that, and even your energy. So this is one of the things that a skill that I'm trying to cultivate is to feel other people's energy. And maybe it's just hard over Zoom. I'm not sure, but
Mm.
there's a lot of three energy and three words and three cadence. However, I as I was listening, I never really heard you sneak in three motivations or
Mm.
or what satisfies a three when you're feeling healthy, or what you do when you're not healthy, like when you're in stress and not dealing with it in a healthy
Oh,
way.
okay.
That's a
Yeah.
different pattern. So three has a different pattern there. Whereas,
Uh-huh.
and if you were really a three, I would have heard certain words. Even though you said shame, which is
Mm.
typically related to the greens. Um, see, greens. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
hear you talk about achievements and accomplishments and a fear of failure. I mean, you did a little bit, but not, but everybody has a fear of failure, of like being the best at what you do. Like there was more humility
Mm.
there. Um, and even when you were talking about your story as, as a child as well, like winning or being successful or succeeding other than the norm.
No.
Because threes, like we
Yeah,
all want
yeah.
to be successful, but threes are like, I'm going to talk about all the things that I have
Right.
done and I have accomplished. And um, you didn't do that. So, but what I did
Mm.
hear is I heard a lot of, I don't want to be trapped and I need to sit
That's it.
still. And I
Yeah.
have insecure, critical self thinking and anxieties. And even though threes have that, they don't talk about it.
Okay. That's the difference, I think. I mean, I think I've gotten a lot of work. Exposure therapy is actually what I had to begin to shape. But and now I think I have a lot more metacognition. And I think that's the difference of the transformation. The transformational work is, now I'm able to really get down and understand exactly how I'm feeling, why am I feeling it. And for me, I did another podcast on success. Success is significance. So my goal of success is to impact and to bring transformation where I am. Like I was doing this volunteering and not getting paid, and I was happy. Like what
Mhm.
brings me joy is seeing people transform.
Yeah. So I
And
call
so and
it.
that's the key. That when you talk about that, that's the key. Yes, nobody wants to not be successful, but that's not my motivation.
Mm, right.
That's not the motivation, right? It's
And
something that I
a very integrated three, it will no longer be their motivation either, but they'll still talk about
okay.
it. they'll still talk
You'll
about
still
it.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
be more humble, like on the inside, they'll be more humble and they'll like, okay, winning is not important to me anymore. Serving
Right.
is more important to me, but they'll
Yeah.
still talk about how they win and what they've accomplished.
What they have done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just because it's ingrained in their psyche, but it doesn't
Okay.
matter. Like people who don't understand threes will look at them as braggy and show offs.
Oh,
You see what I'm
okay.
saying? And
Yeah,
that can
I
be
see what you're
really
saying.
hurtful. That can be really hurtful to a three who's really coming
Ah,
from a place of servitude and
yeah.
humility.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone to say, well, you're such a show off, stop bragging.
Mm,
Then that could be really hurtful
I didn't know
because
that.
we all have needs. We all have needs, and
Yeah.
the reason why threes talk about it is they still have that need to be
Mm-hmm.
successful, but they're not
Yeah.
driven by it as much. Like,
Okay.
I mean,
That's interesting.
yeah, it is interesting.
That's very interesting. Well, I just got a whole coaching session on the Enneagram. Thank you, Miss Jen P. Higgins.
You're very welcome. I learn more every time I go through it. And I'm like, oh yeah. It's like,
Little things brings us joy, so that's good. I get that. Appreciate your time.
bye bye.
Take care.
If you're looking for the visuals I was showing Jen, join me inside my free Facebook group called Unboxing Your Enneagram. Also, next Monday we start the free 5-day challenge called Communicate to Build Relationships, where I'm going to be teaching you the 3 things that humans accidentally do that can slowly put a wedge in your relationships, both professionally and personally, and the 3 simple skills that you can implement to avoid that wedge. Go to powercoachjen.com to sign up for the prizes for the challenge. It's going to be hosted on the podcast, but you do need to be signed up to be eligible for the prizes. Plus, all registrants will be the first ones to get a special offer in their inboxes for lifetime access to something I've got coming up that's going to help you daily at home and in business. Go to the show notes and join the challenge right now. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing the Unbox Your Personality podcast. To learn more about yourself, go to powercoachjen.com. Find out how you are different so you can make your difference.